Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, it is time to rise. It is time to stand up and praise the Holy One of college football. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is another episode of the Saturday Sermon College Football Show. To be exact, it is episode 8. And the best part about it is we did take our regular scheduled recording night off because I was on the road until about 11 o'clock last night for work. That's okay. We're here tonight. We did miss a couple games. I know we missed one that Nick's pretty high on last night, and that was one of his picks this week, which we'll talk about at a later point in the show. But, Nick, how are we feeling? What did we do this weekend?
Uh, Sweating bullets. Watched the most miserable, great football game I could have possibly watched. It was an amazing football game to watch as a college football fan. As a fan of a team, it stressed me out beyond belief. So it was not very enjoyable to watch until we got the kick at the end of the game. Um,
Yeah,
I was 2 hours late to a graduation gender reveal party
graduating a child.
and having
What
kids.
what are we
Yeah,
confused? So are they graduating and
Yaki.
having a kid at the same time? Oh,
Yes.
okay, okay. I was
Yes.
confused. Oh,
Yes.
congratulations, Adrian and Yaki. I'm proud of you guys.
Yeah. So I showed up late to that because obviously I had prior obligations. I lost my voice and I watched the game by myself with nobody but the dog.
Shout out to
Yeah.
Lucy.
Yeah, that was it. It was a hell of a game.
Hmm.
Stressful as hell. I was angry, I was happy, I was damn near in tears of joy. Here we are.
Yeah,
Just win, baby, win.
I did the same thing. I watched about 11 games at once in those early slots. I had the quad box going on the Apple TV, and then I had the other 6 TVs going out here and had games on all of them, and it was great. It was so much football overload, and it was very joyful because of how long the work week was last week. And it was nice just to kick back and drink a couple cold ones and truly enjoy college football. I actually barbecued ribs, got a little creative, made the prettiest ribs I think I've ever made in my life. I sent you guys a picture. They look really good. They tasted even better. They were honey
Better
chipotle.
than that Lincoln Riley brisket.
They were honey chipotle style ribs, which made them
Yeah.
incredible. They had a nice little sweet crunch to them. Had a little bit of a tack on them from some of the barbecue sauce that I mixed up, and it was great. At halftime of the Florida Tennessee game, I did something that I haven't done in almost or a little bit over 6 years, and I actually went across the street and watched a live football game for a little bit. I was stressed out at the score at halftime. Thankfully, Tennessee found a way to pull out the win in overtime. But literally, like I said, I haven't been to a game in a little over 6 years in person. I've been working events where a game's going on behind me, but I've only been there like up until kickoff and took immediately off because I've struggled with going to games since I stopped coaching and playing and all that stuff. And I felt good. I don't know if it was the fact that I had my son with me or he was enjoying himself so much or what, but it was great. I truly felt at home for a little bit, and then the feeling of man, I could still be coaching came over the top of my head, and it broke my
Yeah.
heart. And I immediately turned around and walked back home. But I finished the night with BYU and having, or excuse me, BSU, so Boise State, and having a fire. That was a great way to finish the night. I had this little fire changing, color changing thing that I threw in the fire, and Melissa and I got super excited for it, only to see one small little green flame. It was the biggest dud and
Yeah.
disappointment of my life. But Boise State played really well once again. They played Hawaii at the most ridiculous time slot, but got the win, which is awesome. So we got a couple games to recap here, Nick. We'll start off Friday. Utah at Arizona State. The final score was 27-19 Arizona State. My biggest takeaways from this game has nothing to do with the game itself, and that is Cam Rising. I mean, he's out again for the season. He has the opportunity to come back for year 8. Do we think he should come back for year 8, or do we think he should just give it up? What are your thoughts on that, Nick, and what are your thoughts on the game?
Listen, I'm as a former player and knowing how much the game meant to me, I'm never going to be the guy to tell somebody to give it up. I'm just not going to do it. You know what I mean? Who am I to say that? It's the same as when Favre was playing and everybody's like, he needs to just give it up. And then he goes to Minnesota and goes to an NFC championship. But even if you don't have that
Hey,
success,
hey,
man,
hey,
like,
hey, hey. He went to the Jets and then Minnesota.
okay, yeah, well, nobody remembers the Jets. Actually, he was on a Madden cover,
Yeah, they
but
flipped the cover, I believe, in the middle of the year, didn't they?
yeah, it
Yeah.
was something like that. But yeah, man, that whole situation's sad. It really is because it's not like this kid's just having some little punk injuries here and there. Like he's had some legitimate injuries. He's finally coming back, and it was really sad to watch because they were talking about like, do they just pull the plug on the Cam Rising starting quarterback era prior to this game, and then you see him not 3 plays in the damn game gets rolled up on real bad. He played the game and you could tell he was clearly in pain. And I think deep down he probably knew it's like I can't get out of this game because this is good chances it, and it kind of broke my heart to watch just as a fan of football and a fan of Cam Rising. It's really it was a downfall. I think that kind of set the tone for the night for Utah because they had more issues than just not great quarterback play.
Yeah, and they've kind of fallen hard without Cam Rising. And I had a little bit of faith in Isaac Wilson. I don't think
He's young though
he's
still.
as we said a couple weeks ago. He makes some great plays. He shows some flashes, but he's still super green. He's still super young. This team is different without Cam Rising. If Cam Rising played and he was healthy all season long, this team would still be in contention for that Big 12 championship. I don't see it happening this year for him. One of the things I will take from this game, one of the things I did take from this game is Arizona State's running back was Scadabo.
Scadaboo.
Scadaboo. That 50-yard run was pure chaos. I mean, he straight up just
He
Costco
is
guy
a
it.
dude. That kid was a freaking machine because Cam Rising might be out, but he doesn't play on the D line that Utah has, and they're stout up front. And
Yeah,
he had a field day against them. And you're right, like he's so fun to watch because he's not like a shifty guy. He just runs angry and he runs north and south. He'll make one cut and then he's off to the races.
as I said, he
That
ran
kid,
he ran with pure chaos on that 50-yard run. And I
yes.
mean, he had 22 carries, 158 yards. The kid was, I mean, he was electric. And in our pool, I deleted and went back and forth. I kept putting Arizona State in. I kept putting Utah in. I would delete it and I would change it. And finally, something told me just to stick with Utah. Worst decision I ever made. I had a pretty poor week in our pool last week, but man, I mean, Arizona
Yeah, me
State.
too.
I mean, they're one loss, right?
They have one loss.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
Mr. Scadaboo ran for 158
that's what I
yards
said. 22
on
carries,
22
100.
carries.
Yep, I said that. 122 yards, 100,
Oh,
22 carries, 158 yards. I mean, he ran pure
and you know
chaos.
what's the greatest part about it? He was a kid that, where did he come from? Sac State, I think.
It reminds
He
me
was
a
in
lot of Schrader with Mizzou last year.
Strader. Mhm.
Just came out of nowhere
I
from another
told,
school.
I told Coach Key actually. We text all the time during Saturdays, and I said that did you watch that game? Because Cody Schrader of this season plays for Arizona State.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah,
another.
they're sneaky, man. That he's very well coached team, and it's cool to see. It's always cool to see teams that are not typically good or haven't been good in a long time
Yeah.
turn it around and have a great year. And you see that's happening a ton in the Big 12, but
Yeah,
it's
well,
also
that's
happening.
that's what I was going to say. Another big thing that I was going to kind of save for our hot news topics and stuff like that, but we can get into it right now. The Big 12
Might as well.
is. I texted you the other day and said the Big 12 might be the most exciting conference in college football right now, and it's not because it's the best football, but it's you don't know who's going to win it. You really don't. And the two top dogs in the conference right now, I have said Iowa State for a while. I've thought Iowa State before the season started was going to be a thorn in everyone's side. I did predict Utah and Arizona to go to the finals or to the championship, but I did say you have to watch out for Iowa State, and it's holding true. I mean, Iowa State came out of nowhere. and had an offense from the jump of the season, and that's what they struggled with last year at the beginning of the season, was getting their offense rolling, and they figured it out towards the end of the season and were electric at the end of the season. But the team that surprises us more than anything is BYU right now.
Yeah, if anybody came out of nowhere, it was BYU. They are just like what West Virginia was last year. They're expected to be, I'm pretty sure them and
Them,
no,
them
maybe
and
Arizona State wasn't.
them and Houston were supposed to be the bottom
Yeah,
two
yeah, yeah.
teams in the conference this
Yep.
year.
Yep.
They said coming into the season, all the predictions had BYU and Houston fighting for that last spot, and
Dude,
it's insane to watch. And the biggest thing is they have a media phenomena at quarterback. I mean, I can't tell you how many podcasts and how many radio shows, and I mean, social media right now is blowing up. I mean, even his social media, his nickname, and it's not something the media gave him. It's he gave himself this nickname is the BY Jew because he's a Jewish kid playing at a Mormon college, and he's one of three Jewish
at
people I
the
believe on
Mormon
campus at the
college.
Mormon college. He's one of the three Jewish kids that are on that campus, and he is making a brand for himself with that. I saw something on ESPN today where he was talking about the nickname and all that. That is insane to think about, that you have a kid who typically wouldn't go to a school like BYU, transferring in. I do believe he transferred into BYU,
Football, baby.
and he's making so much money off of the nickname BY Jew, being the only Jewish kid at BYU, or being one of the only Jewish kids at BYU, but being the only leading Jewish kid on their football team. And
Dude,
it's phenomenal to me. It's a great thing. It's an awesome story. This kid is going to make so much money off of merch just because of that. And I think it's pretty clever what they're doing with it. I think BYU is having a great time with it as well. But sorry, I
with
digress.
it.
I got into that a little bit too much, talking about how good BYU is this year and how it's such a
Yeah.
hard game when you have to go over to their stadium and play.
I said it how many times I said
Yeah,
Provo is a weird place to play. And that's all I said. I think they're gonna this was before their BYU was what they ended up being. I said that was why I picked K-State to, possibly get upset. I said Provo is a weird place to play, especially at night. But man, it's more than just the stadium this year.
playing
Those
well.
boys they can win their conference. But
I agree. And I think if we get that in a Big 12 game, that is a game that I think everyone, a Big 12 title game, that is a game that everyone will tune in and watch. Iowa State versus
oh
BYU
yeah.
for the championship. That
Well,
is
you know
one
what?
that they make it to the playoffs. Everyone is going to be quietly rooting for one of those teams to have a lot of success and to upset a big dog in the playoffs because it's just phenomenal to see.
Well, last thing I'll say about the Big 12 picture before we get too carried away is, it's insane to think that now, granted, if these two teams stay on course, this won't happen. But if chaos ensues, like it has not only in the Big 12 but across college football, the Big 12 champion might not be get an automatic bye. They might, if things keep rolling with the Broncos,
Yeah,
Boise State, you may see a G5 with a first round bye, and that's insane to think.
which that would be lovely. And I think the media attention behind Boise State right now is through the roof because of the GOAT, Ashton Genty. But yeah, I'm super excited for, the rest of the Big 12 season to shape out. But I mean, this game was a very pivotal game for both teams going in towards the
Oh
late
yeah.
half of the season. Utah at Arizona State, it was a big one. If Utah won that one, they're still in the title hunt. They lost it. They lost their quarterback. Arizona State with only one loss. If someone slips up, there could be a possibility you could see them in the championship game. So it's a fun conference to watch, but you
I
know
mean, I'm
what?
not going to bet against Whittingham either,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it ain't over till it's over.
It
But
ain't over until the fat lady sings, or whatever that old school quote was. I feel like my mom used to say that to me all the time. But another great conference to talk about is the SEC, moving on to the Red River rivalry, the Red River shootout, the Red River whatever the heck we're supposed to call it now. Texas at
shootout.
Oklahoma. I will say the final score is 34-3 Texas, but Quinn started off pretty rusty. He started off sluggish, was knocking off some rust. Once he knocked off that rust, he didn't really miss a beat. I think his stat line that night was 20 for 29, 199 with one touchdown and one interception. My biggest thing about this game is Venables the problem at Oklahoma. That team should be so much better than what they are, but they moved on from Jackson Arnold way too quickly. He had a bad game, and they moved on way too quickly, thinking that the grass was going to be greener with this young kid. What's his name? Hawkins. This young kid coming in and,
Yeah.
and taking over the reins, and they just aren't any better than what they were before. They ran Dylan Gabriel out of town. Dylan Gabriel would have kept that game exciting like he did last year. But man, I'm saying it right now. I'm putting a statement on it. They weren't in my playoffs, but Texas is winning the national championship.
I
Thoughts
have it in my bracket, so my bracket's still alive.
thoughts about this game? Thoughts about anything?
Let's start with Oklahoma. When Venables took over, I was like, this could be great for Oklahoma in the Big 12. They're not going to have a huge drop off of, I can't imagine the offensive drop off being terrible. And with the Big 12 not being able to play defense, they're going to be able to play good defense. However, they went to the SEC and their offense dropped off a lot more than I thought. And they now have the Lincoln Riley of defense. They had the Lincoln Riley of offense with Lincoln Riley. Now they have the same thing, but it's just on the defensive side of the football. They're they got problems. Yeah, like you're right. Venables, excellent D coordinator, but man, you gotta be able to do more on the offensive side of the ball in any conference. I mean, they could be in the Big 12 plan right now, and I'm not quite sure they're running the league like they probably think they would, like they did in the past. But Texas, there's been one team that has looked clean the whole season, and that's the Texas Longhorns. That team is the most complete football team.
Yep.
And the thing is, this coming week with Georgia, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but like, how do you bet against these guys right now?
Yeah. I mean, especially with how Georgia's been playing. I I can't
100%.
see I can't see a world unless something
I just can't
happens.
justify it.
I can't see a world unless something happens to Texas with injuries or just losing it completely. There's just not a world where I don't see them not being in the national championship game. There's not a world where I don't see them better than Ohio State. There's not a world where I don't see them better than Oregon. There's not a world where I don't see them better than Georgia. There's not a world where I don't see them better than Alabama. I mean, they are the most complete team, and the thing about it is they don't have one good quarterback. They have two good quarterbacks. As long as they can keep those two guys healthy, my opinions still say the same about Arch. I'm happy that Sark, like you've said multiple times, and you've reassured me multiple times, I'm happy Sark is a smart coach and he's letting Quinn play. And he didn't pull Quinn after that first interception of the game. Let him play out of it and let him find his way back. Let us find his groove back because he's got more important games coming up. And he has a more important game coming up this weekend where they're really going to need his confidence and they're really going to need him to play well. So, yeah, that's an awesome game. Any other thoughts about Texas Oklahoma?
No, man, it was a dog walk.
It was. Let's get into the
I expected it to be a little closer, but just not for no reason other than the fact that it was a rivalry football game. I didn't expect it to be a 31-point game, but
well.
then the reality sets.
Let's get into a game that a lot of people thought might have been a dog walk. I don't have much to say about this game. South Carolina at Alabama. The final score was 27-25 Alabama. South Carolina outplayed Alabama on offense, in the passing, in the rushing, and time of possession. The missed field goal in the early fourth quarter came back to biting South Carolina because they were down by two and they ended up losing by two, and that 3 points would have put them over the edge, and Bama would have played completely different football if they were down that many points at that point in time. My thing about it is I don't want to get deep into this. I think South Carolina, I mean, they played LSU very tight and lost that game in a heartbreaking fashion. They played Alabama very tight, lost that game in a heartbreaking fashion. I mean, South Carolina's a good team, and they're not getting the love that they deserve.
I I don't disagree with you one bit, but at the same time, I'm still going to say that Alabama's not Alabama of the past. They aren't looking good. They are undisciplined. There's South Carolina's good, but this isn't a game that they should have lost, and this
Yeah,
was a game they should have lost.
yeah.
Alabama should not. Alabama should have two losses right now,
That's what I said. Speaking
and
of speaking of a dog walk, this game should have been a dog walk if you look at it on paper.
even outside of that, I mean, I expect 13 point, 10 plus points, like two scores minimum. If we're lucky, a 7-point game with a late score. But yeah, no, I mean, Bama's can't play what like they're playing right now.
What's also wild too to me, and my thought process behind this is South Carolina was literally was it 5 points, 6 points total away from being in the same position that LSU's in right now. A one-loss SEC team that's in the top, teetering around the top 10. They're literally 5 points away from being literally 100% in LSU's position, which is so crazy to think about.
Well, think about it this way: you still have a 3-3 team in the Big Ten that's in the same boat.
Yeah, that's crazy. But my last thing on this game, my last thing about these two teams, do you believe that Alabama is going to find a way to sneak into the playoffs? Or do you see them playing rough the rest of the season? Because this is two back-to-back rough weeks. Did they blow everything in the Georgia game?
I can see them sneaking in because I still think they have a Heisman caliber quarterback. They still have talent across the board. That being said, this week is a playoff game. You have two teams in the same position that are fighting for their lives to stay in this thing.
And we can
And
jump into
I
that
mean,
game when we're covering
yeah,
the
yeah,
games
yeah.
coming up this week. So I don't want you to, waste everything right here.
No,
But
no, no, but
I do agree.
they're in a playoff game right now.
I
So
do
if they
agree.
don't get it together, they're in trouble.
I do 100% agree. But speaking of somebody that is in trouble, let's talk about Ohio State at Oregon. The final score of that game, 32-31, Oregon. My personal three takeaways from this game. Number one, Denzel Burke was a complete liability at corner. I mean, Tez Johnson had 7 catches, 75 yards, and a touchdown. Evan Stewart had 7 catches, 149 yards, and a touchdown. Both had incredible days. My second takeaway from the game, Dylan Gabriel moved himself back into Heisman contention with this game. He was 23 for 34. He had 341 yards passing. He had 2 touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. And my last takeaway from this game is Ryan Day truly the problem? Is Ryan Day the problem with this team in big games that matter at crucial times? Is Ryan Day holding this team back because he doesn't have the same confidence and swagger about him as Urban Meyer had? Or is it just the team's not as good as what we thought? So, let you hop on in.
I I think there are more issues than Ryan Day. Um, I think there's issues with Jim Knowles, tell you the truth. These tight games come up, he kind of clams up, he gets conservative. Um, he doesn't rise to the occasion. Now, I guess that's a Ryan Day hire, so sure, you could probably pin it back on him. But you know what kind of was more disappointing than anything out of this team? That front. Are they paper tigers? I mean, you're talking
Well, didn't they have an
these
injury? Isn't their star defensive end kind of injured? Didn't he come out with an ankle wrap or something?
Tui, what's his name? God.
Yeah, because I believe he was hurt, and I believe he came into the game hurt, if I'm not
But
mistaken, or got hurt early on in
I
the game.
mean,
But anyways, to agree with your
either
point,
way,
to agree with your
they're
point,
across
yes,
the board.
no pressure.
They are across the board supposed to be one of the best, if not in college football. And this was supposed to be a strong suit of this Ohio State team that paid a lot of guys a lot of money to come back. And it's like, if you're gonna play like this against your best opponents, you should have taken your ass to the NFL because those that draft stock, I mean, what it did show is Ohio State is beatable. I think I think Oregon's still beatable. Um, I think if they play again, if they meet like we think, I don't think Oregon probably wins the game. But hey,
100%.
you never know. You never know. That was a crapshoot, and there's a little controversy with that one that I
Yep.
got in some trending topics.
Yes, but before we do all that, I 100% agree with you on that statement. I think Ohio State played very, very sloppy football for our Ohio State team, and I think Oregon played their most complete and almost perfect game that they've played all season long. Oregon was firing on all cylinders. We have not seen them play like that at all this year. Not once. They played incredible football start to finish. Do I think they can replicate that? Maybe. but I think Ohio State will play much better if they meet in the Big Ten championship. I truly believe that. I think Ohio State will come out on top in that game. But yeah,
Hey, they may not make it.
yeah,
We'll get to that. We'll
we'll,
get to that. But
we'll get to that in a
um,
second. But if they don't make it, this other team probably isn't going to make it either. But we'll jump into that here in a
listen.
second. We're not foreshadowing right here. We can argue here in a second. But the
Wait.
last
I got one. I got one more. Do you got something else with Oregon?
I do. The
All right,
last
go
thing I
ahead.
want to say about Ohio State at Oregon. Ohio State, I said last year, going back to the Michigan game last year, I will never forget me telling you that if they don't beat Michigan, Ryan Day is going to be rumored to be on the chopping block, which that did come out for a little bit. It wasn't like a hard report or anything, but there were rumors that this year he is coaching for his job.
I mean, you have to be. If you have a $31 million budget to win football games and you're not winning football games, if you're not making it out of your conference, your ass better be on the chopping board.
So I pose the question to our loyal followers. If Ryan Day is fired from his position, if something happens, they lose again. They lose to Penn State. They lose to Michigan. They lose to Michigan. He's definitely getting canned. If they lose another game, they don't make it to the Big Ten championship game. They don't win the Big Ten championship game. One of those scenarios comes to fruition. Who is the next guy in line? And I'll pause for a
And how
minute.
quickly does
Hold
it?
on. Who is the next guy in line if Ryan Day gets fired? We'll pause. You got your answer? Do you have your answer? Alrighty, fans. Well, here's my answer. One of three guys. Number one, there is a former NFL head coach that was a defensive coordinator and an incredible player for Ohio State that is looking for a job. I believe he's currently an analyst or assistant to the assistant of the assistant coach in Cleveland right now, but Mike Vrabel is looking for a job. What better story than the incredible Mike Vrabel going back to his alma mater to be the head coach? That is one guy that I have in mind. The second guy that I have in mind, he is currently a commentator. He is currently an analyst on Fox, right? And his name is Urban Meyer. Urban
Eh,
Meyer, I could see in a world where they offer him enough of a bag that he is going to want to come back to
we
Columbus
got the
and
money.
take that position over and groom somebody to be the next coach. I think they could do a 2-year deal with him, groom somebody underneath him. He knows he's grooming someone underneath him to take that next step to take over the program. And number three, Nick, you're going to argue this one. A lot of people argue this one, but he might already be on the coaching staff, and that's Chip Kelly. Now, I will tell you this. Chip Kelly did not do the best job with the Eagles. He didn't do the best job when he was over at UCLA, but he had flash. Do we think that Chip Kelly could be the next head coach over someone like a Brian Hartline or someone else? Because he's already in-house and he's an easy hire. So those are my three that I think. Nick, do you have any in mind of people who you think could be the head coach of Ohio State if Ryan Day gets canned?
No, I mean, to be honest with you, I think there's way too many moving pieces up to this point. For all we know, it could be somebody who's coaching and having a great year at the G5, at the Power 4 level. I don't know. The last thing I do want to say one other thing about Oregon and Ohio State. Oregon has been preparing for this game since they joined the Big Ten.
Yeah.
That team out west, this is all they've been talking about. They've been practicing for this game and preparing for this game for a year now. Can they duplicate it? I don't know. Did they just give everything they had for Ohio State, like we just said? Could be. It's gonna be interesting to. It's gonna be interesting to see.
I agree. But staying on the topic of Big Ten, tell you what, I made a comment a couple weeks ago. Actually, it was last week, and it was that I felt that Ohio State and Penn State were both going to have issues with the travel, but I felt that Penn State was more likely to lose that game than Ohio State was. I was almost right, but then I was wrong, and I was wrong by the grace of a missed field goal by USC. Penn State beat USC in a game that should not have been the way it went. Should not have went down the way it went. But Penn State ended up beating USC 33-30. Before I let Nick cook, because I'm going to let you cook, buddy. Tyler Warren was a god among mortals out there. 17 catches, 224 yards, one touchdown reception. PSU, Penn State, they played USC's game instead of sticking to their own. There's no reason why Aller should have aired the ball out 43 times in that game when you have two incredible running backs that could have ate USC's defense up alive if they would have leaned on him a little bit more. With that, I mean, 30 for 43, 391 yards, two touchdowns, and three interceptions. Again, we say this time after time, and I know I
Two
do.
picks, technic. I mean, if you want to get
It was
technical
three
here, but hey,
interceptions on the stat line. It was three
on the
interceptions.
stat line.
But I've been saying this. When you air the ball out that much, you're going to put yourself at risk of throwing interceptions. And last week in the episode, I said that Aller is the more efficient quarterback, but he's not the same style of quarterback as Miller Moss, and we saw that. I mean, just being honest, with three interceptions, we saw that. Two, technically, but three. But Penn State's rush defense just wasn't good. Woody Marks really ran well, especially in the first half, but the game in the second half was a completely different game than what we saw in the first half. And now, Nick, I'm going to let you cook, but I'm very happy that Penn State did find a way to pull out that win. So, Nick, go ahead and cook. Let's hear it.
Now, I want to ask you something again. Are you telling me that Miller Moss is better than Drew Aller as a quarterback?
That's not what I said.
I'm asking. No, I'm asking for clarification.
No, I don't think Miller Moss is a better quarterback. And I said that last week. I do believe my exact words were Miller Moss on paper is the better of the two quarterbacks, but in reality, the more efficient of the two quarterbacks was Drew Aller. And we can pull the clip if you want. I think efficient.
No.
I think
was just curious.
I think when you're talking about quarterback play, and I'm going to use an example for you. NFL example. When you're talking about quarterback play, a couple years ago, when the Titans lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, you had Ryan Tannehill, you had Patrick Mahomes. Okay, Patrick Mahomes on paper, incredible quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. This is the first time I've ever said this publicly. I'm not a big Patrick Mahomes fan, but in the style of offense that Tennessee played that season, Ryan Tannehill was a very efficient quarterback. And that efficiency is what led them to win games because he used his arm when he needed to use his arm. He used his talents with his arm and his mobility when he needed to use it, but he relied on the players around him to find that success. Same situation here. On the field, I think Miller Moss has more tools as a quarterback than Drew Aller in the sense that Miller Moss can air the ball out like crazy and make stuff happen with his arm by just spamming passes. I think Drew Aller is a smarter, more efficient quarterback in the sense that, and their offensive coordinator is a smarter, more efficient offensive coordinator in the sense that he uses his arm when he needs to use his arm, but he relies on the dogs in the backfield to get the ball rolling. That is how I feel about those two.
Okay, I was just curious. I now looking back at the picks too. I think you had to watch the football game to understand what you're looking at. And any professional analyst, anybody who knows a thing about football, they're not looking at that game. I've not heard one single commentator say three interceptions because the reality of it, one was a Hail Mary and at the end of the game. That's whatever. Another one it was contested, but Drew has a great arm and he trusts his arm, so he went for it. I'm not too mad at it. It got tipped up in the air and picked. And then another one, I mean, that was an excellent play on the defensive back. I mean, a pick's a pick, it's a pick, but I just think that you needed to watch that game to actually truly be able to digest what happened on the field there.
Well, and also, not to cut in, but you talk about the 30 for 43, if his receivers would actually have caught the ball.
Yeah, Julian Fleming helped win that game. He was at that fourth quarter, the two fourth down catches that were both him. So,
but early on, they were all dropping balls. And I told you, I think I texted you at halftime after I was trolling you for a little bit in our group chat. But in reality, I was texting you on the side and letting you know how I truly felt. I felt that he had to rely on Tyler Warren to win this game. I literally texted you right before, I think it might have been the second quarter, and said,
this is make big time plays.
This is where Tyler Warren's going to go off because nobody else is catching the ball, and every time he seems to drop back and throw the ball to Tyler Warren, he's catching it, and he's at least getting 3 or 4 yards out of it. Little did I know he was going to have 17 catches for 224 yards as a tight end. But I mean, you got to catch the ball, you got to secure the ball, and there were several plays, especially in the first quarter, where it looked like Penn State receivers just could not catch the ball.
No. No, I think that there's a lot with this game. First off, Woody Marks is I don't care what kind of weapons you have on the side, uh, like are on the edge with the receivers, quarterback. The strength of that USC team is Woody Marks and running the football. The kid's good. Now, I don't think Penn State played their best game. Granted, I think the defensive line was getting held quite a bit. Um, but the refs let these guys play both sides, and for the most part, um, so that point aside, I think if they lean on him, USC more moving forward, I think they're, I mean, as good as their season can be, I think they're going to have a lot more success. Um, this game to me was like a get over the hump game last year. James Franklin and Penn State Nittany Lions probably don't win the game. Um, Several years back, they don't win this football game, but they found a way to win. And I almost, it just, it's like you have that like that reputation, and it's like it feels like it's so hard for them to get over that hump. And it almost just feels like, I think I said this in our group message, this game felt like it was going to be a struggle solely for that reason. There was no Penn State wasn't gonna go in and just wipe the floor with USC because they had to get over that hump and that reputation of choking in the big games.
Yeah,
And they did it. And I think it was going to be ugly. But you know what? I'm still going to say USC is a good football team. They just
yeah.
don't know how to win.
I felt you mentioned the big game thing though. I felt this game for people who know football, it wasn't a big game, but for the teams on the field and for the fans and for the spectacle of what it brings, this was a big game. I mean, it was big game energy. Honestly, would you agree on that? I think. I think it wasn't a big game because of the fact that you have an unranked team versus a ranked team, and you have an unranked team with multiple losses versus a ranked
On
team that has.
paper,
On paper, it wasn't a big game. That's essentially what I'm saying. But the big game feel with it being it being a helmet game, being two historical teams, and the implications behind this game with Penn State finally being able to break the mold and win a big game, and the broadcast and all of that stuff, I felt like it became a big game because of that.
yeah, I mean, I think that there's a reason the Vegas odds weren't set that Penn State was going to win by multiple scores.
Yeah,
It wasn't going to happen. Now you look at them on paper, yeah, it looks like Penn State should have won the game by more. But, if you break it down a little bit too, there was a lot of missed opportunities in different areas. They had to settle for field goals. They had a touchdown called back. So that's 6 points. Couple picks puts USC in scoring range. I mean, the ball rolls a couple different ways. I mean, literally in the opposite directions. Ball rolls in USC's direction, they edge out a close win.
yeah.
Ball rolls in Penn State's direction, they win by 17 points. I mean, that's football, but it was overall, I feel good about it because as a Penn State fan watching football for all these years, again, that's a game that they lose. I tend to still think that USC is a good football team. I just don't think they can win,
Agree.
or they don't know how to finish and win. Um, and I think it's a great win for Penn State. I
It
really
is.
do. The
It's a good
implications,
program win. Honestly, it's just a
yeah,
program win. That's
100%. I
what it
mean,
is.
again, they don't win that game in several other years.
Yep.
They're in a timely bye, and I think that's perfect. Um, they can score points. It feels good. I mean, I think overall, I feel good. I mean, Tyler Warren, what can you say about the kid? The kid can literally do everything you want him to do, and he is I'm gonna quote,
And he can paint your back porch.
oh, and he can pass.
Yeah.
Classic. No,
Friday Night Lights.
Kirk Herbstreit. Kirk Herbstreit goes. Uh, he said Tyler Warren had a career on the field against USC. He didn't have a game. He said he had a
He had a
career.
career.
Best quote of the week.
Well, with that in mind, we do have one more game that we need to cover, but I need to cue something up first. The villain arc has officially started. Ole Miss at LSU. Ole Miss lost 29-26 to LSU, and that post-game press conference, Jackson Dart literally looked like Anakin Skywalker when he finally accepted the dark side right before he fought Obi-Wan Kenobi, where he had that little hood over the top of his head. He had the little eye black cross that he wears under his eye there, and he was looking up, yeah, exactly how Nick was on that press conference. The first thing that popped into my mind being a massive Star Wars fan is, oh no, Darth Vader has been born. But then I realized, oh no, Ole Miss doesn't show up in big games. If they didn't show up in another big game today, I don't think Jackson Dart is having a statistically great year. But some of the plays he's making on the field are not statistically great. It's not great football. But that was the first thing that came to my mind. I literally saw that, and I was like, man, literally, he is becoming Darth Vader. Are they going to come out next week in all black uniforms that they just pull out of thin air? Is he going to come out with a black visor on and breathing like?
No, you know what? You know,
I don't think so either. I don't think so either.
You know, I'm going to tell you what he thought that was. That moment when I watched it, I cringed because he thought that was his Tim Tebow moment. You know, I promise you're not going to see a team work harder, play harder. That's what he thought that was. You could tell with the flair, the hood, he tried to make it that way. And then he tried to say his words like in a certain cadence. Get the, get out of here, bro.
He's Darth
I'm
Vader,
tired.
man.
I'm
He
tired.
is he is Darth Vader, but you know what happens at the end of Star Wars? Darth Vader ends up getting killed.
Yeah.
He does. He gets killed for
And
fighting. He gets killed for fighting other evil. And Nick, I think that other
and
evil.
Darth Vader's head coach jumped ship to another team in the SEC
That's
as well.
exactly what I was getting ready to
That's
say. I
is
said
that what happened in Star Wars
he is
series?
fighting he is fighting another evil. So Darth Vader in a fight with other evil, he sacrifices himself and he dies and da 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 da. Is this what we're seeing? Is that other evil? Is our Palpatine Lane Kiffin in this story? Is our Palpatine the one that brought Darth Vader to the dark side? Is our Palpatine Lane Kiffin? And is Lane Kiffin going to jump ship and go to Florida because he's realized he's done all that he can do at Ole Miss? Now let's go to a very
I don't
bad.
even want to hear.
Let's
I don't
go
even
to
want
a.
to hear he's
Listen,
done all that he can do
he's
either.
done all that he could do at Ole Miss, and they're not going to be better after this year. This was supposed to be the year that people really bought into Ole Miss, and they're not going to be able to replicate this next year. And it's not a great season, and I don't think they're going to be able to replicate this next year. This is the season that that Lane Kiffin realizes, I'm done here. I am going to Florida. I am taking that job over in Florida. I'm going to start with a losing program. I'm going to win them up 7 games, and then I'm going to
Yeah,
bounce to Alabama.
I don't. They don't. I don't think they like him in Alabama. First off, and second off, I am not buying Lane Kiffin stock.
I love Lane Kiffin, but
I'm
damn
so
it.
sick and tired, dude. No, he's a pick me. He's all about himself. The way he acts, he's posting Instagram pictures of Gators. Like, brother, you have a whole team right now. I don't care if you're a troll. And you know what? What's funny is he's been trolling Mr. Brian Kelly for the past, I couldn't tell you how long. And guess what happened?
I mean, so
His
did we, but
team got beat. Well, I don't play, my team doesn't play the LSU. I don't coach a team that plays the LSU Tigers. Lane Kiffin is overrated.
no, he's not.
Yes, he is.
Agree to disagree. But Nick, let's dive into this game a little bit. LSU has snuck their way through a lot of wins this season. They lost to USC. It's not aging well. I mean, agree? It's really not aging well. But they are
Yeah,
moving
I
up.
mean,
They are moving up in the
they're trending
rankings and
upwards.
stuff.
They're
They're
trending
trending
upwards.
upwards. But then you think about Murder's Row. They have Arkansas, which say what you want,
Arkansas is not a
Arkansas
slouch.
Arkansas is
They're
not
a
a slouch.
thorn.
Yep, they can play really well against good teams, and I think Arkansas is going to be a thorn in their side. But that Arkansas game goes to the Bama game. Then they have A&M,
No,
and
no,
then
no. A&M first, and then
A&M. Yeah, so
Bama.
Arkansas, A&M, Bama, and then Vanderbilt.
Florida, and then Vanderbilt.
But I'm saying the tough games they have
Oh,
left.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not
Oh,
including.
okay, yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
whoa, whoa, whoa! I am not including Florida in the tough game. But the tough games they have left are literally Arkansas, Bama, A&M, and Vanderbilt in no particular order. Sorry. Those are not easy games to win. Those are games that if you play the way you've played the past, maybe not past week. But if you played the way that you've played earlier in the season, and they're going to against one of these teams, they're going to have another loss. Someone's going to hang up another loss on them. I personally could see it either being Arkansas or A&M. I think that Alabama should be able to beat them, but we don't know what Alabama's going to look like moving forward. This is going to be a big test for them this weekend to see who they're going to be the rest of the
They
season.
still have they still have Oklahoma at the end of the year. I mean, they're not great, but I
LSU
don't
is a
think
place.
LSU is great.
LSU is a placeholder right now.
I'm not going to argue it. I'm going to give the smallest of props in a sense that they have trend. No, no, I'm not even going to say it. They beat South Carolina by 6 and they should have lost. They beat UCLA and that game was closer in Death Valley than it should have been. They played South Alabama and then they beat Ole Miss, who I think are frauds as well.
Yeah, but
Arkansas.
you think Arkansas is going to beat them?
Mr. Alex Scholl does.
Alex Scholl,
Ooh,
shout out
Big
to
Suey.
Scholl. Shout out to Scholl. Man, I could see it. I really could, and that's not because they beat Tennessee, but that's also because they beat Tennessee. They could be a thorn in the side of a team that's trending upwards, and I agree. I could see it happening. But talk about teams that are trending up and down. We got some players that are trending up. This is our favorite, at least my favorite topic of the week. I get to dig into a bunch of stats. I get to dig into a bunch of highlights. I get to dig into a bunch of things I watched over the weekend. I got a little notepad that I write a bunch of stuff down on. It's over here by my computer. Literally, we'll go through and write down a bunch of notes on players and stuff like that. So this week I have two players for the Ashton Jeanty Player of the Week award. Nick, I'll let you go first with your players of the week because odds are one of the two of them are probably the same. But Nick, go ahead and let it
I
rip.
mean,
Who are your players of the week?
well, I guess I technically have two. I had one until I watched a particular football game on Saturday, and that one was the first game of the week on Friday. And Mr. Scadaboo from Arizona State, that kid played like a machine. But there's another guy that played so well that I forgot that that kid had a great game on Friday, and that is Mr. Tyler Warren. Dude, this kid took this kid took snaps at quarterback, running back, center, tight end. He had rushing yards, and then he had 17 receptions. That ties the FBS record for most receptions by a tight end in college football history. He's tied with two other guys from like I think the 80s and like the 60s. So this is his a historic game that he played. Not only that, he has the all-time Penn State receiving record of not just tight ends, but wide receivers. We talk about the best players in college football up to this point. I've told you for how many past 2 years that the best kept secret in Happy Valley is Tyler Warren. Can you confirm or can you deny?
Confirmed.
Confirms. And he is finally gotten and he was good the past couple years, but they used him a lot to block because he was so good at blocking. And they still had Theo Johnson and Brenton Strange. This dude is a Swiss Army knife, and he is not only the best tight end of college football, he's one of the best football players in college football. That award goes to Tyler Jennings, or Tyler Ashton Jeanty award goes to Tyler Warren.
Okay. So the Ashton Jeanty Player of the Week award goes to two men in my opinion. Number one, Tyler Warren, tight end, Penn State. You got to give it to him. He is one of my two finalists for this award this week. Kid played lights out football, everything Nick said, and more. I mean, he did everything, and he's been doing a lot of stuff. And up until this week, I had him as 1A, 1B tight end. I still think that Harold Fannin Jr. kid from Bowling Green is an incredible tight end, and I think both of these guys are going to end up in the NFL. I think plus side for Fannin over Warren, as I feel Fannin's can be more of a Travis Kelce type player where he plays that almost slot type role, that wide receiver type role. But I think about Warren. Warren is more of a utility player. He can play out of the backfield. He can play inside the box. He can play outside of the box. He can go out and maybe play perimeter if he needed to in the NFL. I think Tyler Warren really catapulted himself as the true number one tight end this week. No questions asked. no doubt about it. He is officially the number one tight end in college football. But it wouldn't be the Ashton Jeanty Award if we didn't give my second player of the week to Ashton Jeanty in a 28-7 win overall against Hawaii. Wow, 31 carries, 217 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, and because they want to get him even higher odds in the Heisman, he had 1 receiving touchdown that he didn't even need to catch the ball to score on. Guys, what this kid's doing, and I know Travis Hunter said what he said this week, and I saw it.
We'll get to that.
And I giggled about it. But what Ashton Jeanty is doing right now, it's not historical in the sense that it's never been done before. It's historical and incredible in the sense that the person's record that he is chasing is arguably one of the greatest running backs in NFL and college football history. When you think of Barry Sanders, you think of one of the greatest football players in history. I mean, when people ask who's the greatest player of all time, Barry Sanders is usually in that mix. And you have a kid that is on pace to shatter his touchdown and rushing yard record. And you're going to go on and say what you're going to say. So, Nick, let's just go ahead and transition into that right now in the comments made by Mr. Travis Hunter in our newsworthy topics.
Listen, Travis has a million reasons why he can vouch for himself in winning a Heisman. The one he chose was probably the dumbest thing and the worst option he could have picked because it made absolutely zero sense.
Agree?
If I had 95 catches, imagine how many yards I have. Well, no shit, Travis. If you had 95 receptions, first off, that alone would be asinine up to this point in the season.
Yeah.
Okay. Not only that, you catch the ball downfield, my guy. You take a handoff in the backfield, and you have to run for all those yards with the ball in your hands.
You
Way different.
You get the ball out of the backfield standing like Michael Myers, standing like Plankton. Literally, when I watch him,
You're like,
when I watch him stand in the backfield, that is what I imagine. Or not called him Plankton. That's what I imagine Plank from Ed, Edd, and Eddy looks like. Ashton Jeanty is literally Plank, the board from Ed, Edd, and Eddy, if he was a football player. It's insane to watch the amount of momentum and drive and focus that he can get running the ball from standing from that position. The only thing I can think of is he's in a relaxed, comfortable position that he's able to read the field.
Well, that's what he says.
He's able to slow the ball off from the handoff point, so he's able to slow things down and not come into a full sprint that he would if he was in an athletic position. And I think that allows him to read holes a little bit better and see the field a little bit better because he's not rushing to the line. He's
like
patient
playing
getting to the
backyard
line.
football.
But he's literally, I mean, he's an anomaly. He's literally an anomaly. We've only seen one other player do what he's doing, and it's the greatest, arguably one of the greatest NFL players, one of the greatest football players of all time, and that's Barry Sanders. My other thing, Travis Hunter, you are doing something with that comment that is showing how insecure you are about your standings in the running for this award. You are, instead of hyping yourself up, you are bringing another person down. And that shows that you are close to already being defeated mentally. You are thinking that you are not going to win this award. I could be wrong. You could have a different mindset than that. But typically when people throw other people under the bus and don't raise themselves up or praise themselves, typically are people that are, number one, jealous of the success that the other person's having. But number two, people that are insecure about where their standing is right now because they're trying to tear other people around that are having success. So Travis Hunter, are you insecure or are you just a different person?
you know what I think it is?
I think it's
I
insecurity.
think he does. I don't think it's insecurity. He plays for Deion Sanders, and the kid is incredible. You know what I think it is? I think it's the lack of media training and the fact that his head coach says and does the things that he does. I'm not shocked by it. I think
You
Travis
can't.
is.
They're both playing. I don't mean to cut you off, but they're both playing incredible football.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Why not?
That's
I mean,
what I'm saying.
They're not your rival.
Because he's not media. He's not media trained
But it's like
properly.
they're not your rival. They're not
It's a
someone.
clown show. It's a clown show in Boulder.
It's
It's a
not.
clown show in Boulder.
But they're not your rival. They're not someone that you're going to play against this season. I mean, truthfully, they're not. You're not going to play them at all this season.
Unless they meet in a random bowl game if Boise doesn't make the playoff.
The Tom, Dick, and Harry Rose Bowl or Tom, Dick, and Harry Finger Bowl or whatever, the church offering bowl,
Church's Chicken,
offering bowl, yeah.
Visa Bowl, yeah.
But I mean, you're not going to play him. Why are you ripping this kid down? This kid's been nothing but positive. He has the bet with his offensive line that started early in the season. I mean, how can you not love this guy? He literally said, "If I don't rush for 2,000 yards, I'm cutting my dreads off." The kid literally had every single school in the country call him and ask him to transfer in and play running back for them, and he said, "No, I'm going to finish what I'm starting." Probably got the bag at Boise State, truthfully, but he's going to finish what he started there. He has a real faith in his team. How can you not love this kid? He's all, every interview, he's smiling, he's happy to be there, he's very proud of his success. How can you not love this guy? And you're going to
I
say
think,
something stupid as, "Well, if I had 95 catches, imagine how many yards I would get." Come
yeah,
on,
he's a good kid. He's said some really solid things in the media before. This just wasn't his best shining moment,
and
I
I
would
do I
say.
do like Travis Hunter a lot. I will
Yeah,
echo that.
yeah.
I do think that
It just wasn't a good look this time around.
it wasn't. It really wasn't. So what else you got?
Yeah, that started us right in there. Let's see what we didn't cover here. Man,
Joey transition does that on purpose.
listen, I have a lot. I don't even know where to start. It's coaches. It's about coaches. We already talked about Lane. Lincoln Riley. Is he on the hot seat?
No,
You don't think?
no. I think
Give
it's
me a
going to
reason why.
take. I think they're going to give him at least one more season. I really
Yeah.
do. I think they're going to give him at least one more season. I think they're going to use the transition to a new conference as the scapegoat. I think they're going to give him one more season, and then I end up seeing him as a coordinator in the NFL somewhere. I see him doing exactly what Cliff Kingsbury did, even though Cliff Kingsbury was fired in the NFL. But I see him being a coordinator in the NFL. There's no reason why he's not a coordinator in the NFL right now. He's a great offensive coordinator. He's a good offensive mind guy. He can call plays if he has the right talent around him to call the plays. But Nick, if he doesn't perform next year, he's losing his job. So I think he's on the warm seat, not the hot seat.
That seat's getting rather warm. Let's put it that way. You know what the problem is with Lincoln Riley, and I've said it a long time, but this issue that he's having right now started years ago, and it's his neglecting of one side of the football.
Yeah.
You cannot play half, you cannot be, you cannot just play offense and throw your defense under the bus and say whatever happens, happens. He's done that, and it's been this culture that he's brought in, and now these guys don't know how to win football games. I think his seat's getting pretty warm. I mean, you are in a premier program and you are entering the Big Ten. You're letting Oregon, who is doing a great job, but you're letting Oregon, they're not supposed to be the premier brand of the teams out west. They are the ones that are getting all the praise because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. I think Lincoln's seat is getting rather toasty.
Yeah, I don't think he's on the hot seat quite yet, though. And they have to have a
But it's getting
complete.
there. It's
They
getting
have to.
there.
They have to have a
Yeah,
complete meltdown at the end of the season for him to get fired after this year. But I do think he's on the warm. I think his seat's getting warm.
it's getting
I think he's
pretty
got a
pretty
heating
warm.
pad under his butt right now, and I think it's someone's behind him, a little kid's behind him, cranking the heat up on that heating pad, playing a prank on him. I think he is on the warm seat, not the hot seat. If he doesn't perform next year, if USC doesn't perform next year, he will be on the hot seat and he will be let go from his position. What else?
All right, next move we got Kirby Smart going Woody Hayes on a player on the sideline. What are your thoughts?
It is indicative of what his program is, and
Okay, mind you, wait. Before we do that, let me be clear because for those who don't may not understand the reference, Woody Hayes was an Ohio State coach who what did he do? He punched the Clemson player in the throat on the sideline back in the day. Well, Kirby was going over to discuss something with the ref. He was not very happy, mind you. Quarterback from Mississippi State was in his area, and he full arm shoved the kid out of his way. Now you can continue.
I think it is indicative of his team and of the players. They have had, I'm looking it up right now, according to the Atlanta Journal, there have now been 24 arrests of Georgia football players for driving related incidents since January of last year. That is just a small thing. There have been other arrests that have happened in that football program. I think that we looked at Kirby Smart as a pretty good football coach, not a great football coach, a pretty good football coach with a great team around him who had a bunch of knuckleheads doing dumb things. Watching this weekend, I'm now realizing that the head of the household needs to clean up his act so the rest of the players follow suit. I am now wondering, what does he do? What does he say? How does he act behind closed doors? And also, how does he respond to players after they get in trouble? What precedence is he setting by going out and shoving the Mississippi State quarterback? What precedence is that setting for the rest of your team? Oh, it's third down or whatever, and you're going to spit on a player. It's, 4th and 1, we're in a crucial situation, you catch a pass, and then you punch a guy in the face. Like, literally, when your head man is doing stupid things like that, the rest of your team is going to find that to be acceptable to do because the head of the household is not taking charge and being what they're paying him to be. They're paying him a ton of money to be what they need him to be, and he's not doing that. There's no discipline on that team off the field. There's questionable discipline with that team on the field, and now you're seeing the head man pushing another player. What happens if that player pushed the head coach?
Oh, he's done.
He's done.
It's a wrap.
He's done. He's suspended the rest of the year. He's suspended multiple games.
And you wanna
What
you
if,
wanna know the worst?
even better question, what if he would have punched Kirby Smart for shoving him the way he did?
His career's over.
His career's over. But yet Kirby Smart can do what he did, and we're just going to laugh it off, and he's not going to be suspended or anything like that. They should
Well,
they should suspend his ass.
They should. They should.
Pardon the curse
And
word. Pardon the curse word.
here's the thing about it that I think is the worst part is one, he claims he didn't realize it. Come on, dude. He's like, I didn't realize he was right there, this and that.
You were looking at him
If
dead in
that's
the
the
eyes.
case, you don't full extend your arms if you don't notice somebody's by you. Okay, what the truth is, he was pissed off over a call. He was pissed off that his team was in a battle with a
Mississippi
subpar
State, the worst
Mississippi
SEC
State.
team.
He let his anger get the best of him, and that's how he
They
responded.
they got murked by Toledo, and they're hanging in the game with Georgia.
My next
You're,
part about it,
mm,
Greg Sankey, commissioner of the SEC, he excused it. He said, "Oh, I believe it was an accident. Um, I don't really." He blew it off, and that's just, you know what the thing is. It's Kirby Smart.
that's exactly it, Nick. And I just have stuff in my head right now that
I guarantee you,
I wish I could get out.
If Jeff Lebby pushed a kid, if Jeff Lebby from Mississippi State pushed a Georgia football player like that, what would happen?
He's suspended.
Not a question about it.
He's
He is suspended, and this is a huge deal.
Yep. I,
But how do you
I
feel like the media is really talking that much about the incident?
if we weren't recording, Nick, I would say a ton of stuff that would probably not be good. But what's running through my head in this situation is something that we talked about off camera. Some people get special privileges. Some people get treated different than other people. And I just can't wrap my head around why the SEC is letting this fly.
It's just excused like
You're
it's nothing. That's It
supposed
wasn't
to
really any official
you're
statements. It
supposed to
was
be the
let's act
leader.
like this didn't happen.
You're supposed to be a leader. You're supposed to be poised under pressure. You are a head coach of a nationally ranked football team, and you are going to shove a player from the worst football team in your conference, maybe one of the worst football teams in Power 5 college football, Power 4 college football. You got to be a mature adult in those situations. And Kirby Smart just
That was trash. I mean,
horrible.
that
That's
was
horrible.
outright
It's
trash.
unexcusable, and they're excusing it. What else you got?
Well, we can keep on going from there, but let's move on to probably the biggest thing talked about this week, and that is Dan Lanning's decision to put a 12 man on the field to take the penalty but burn time off the clock so it limits Ohio State's ability to score. Now, since that happened, the US or the NCAA has already
The USC,
fixed the USC, the USA, the whatever.
The UFC.
Yeah, the NCAA has already changed rules to prevent that from happening. I haven't looked exactly into how they changed it. My thought was that it's not a runoff. I mean, the time gets added back to the clock. It should. Um, Dan Lanning did confirm that that was not an accident. Now, that arguably affected the outcome of the game. What are your thoughts?
Um, I think that the greatest coach in football and professional football used to bend the rules like that as well. And if you're not going to have rules in place to stop it from happening, it's a part of the strategy of football. You got to do whatever you need to do to win the game that's within the confines of, not breaking any, policies or anything like that. And if there is a loophole that a coach is smart enough to figure out that is going to benefit them in the long run or benefit them in the short run, I think you use it. I think you use it to your advantage. It is Bush League. It's very immature. It's kind of stupid in my opinion that he did it. But at the same time, if you look at it clearly from a I need to win this game standpoint, you got to do whatever you can do to win that game. Belichick was who I was talking about. Belichick used to bend the rules
Yeah,
quite
no.
often, and I think that Dan Lanning is a smart coach. He's a young coach who has a brilliant mind for the game. And he knew of a rule that he could break and he could put his team in a better position, and he did that. And I mean, kudos to him for doing it, but now he can't do it again. He ruined it for anybody else to try to use it in the future. And I think what ruined it for anybody else to use it in the future was number one, the timeout called before it happened, but number two, him admitting that they practiced that. If he would have just kept his mouth shut,
Yeah.
if he would have kept his mouth shut, we're not hearing the same thing today. It'll be a rule that was changed at the end of the season, not immediately. I think it's
Yeah,
Bush
I
League.
mean,
I think it's Bush League
it's
ball.
okay. Yep, everything you said is pretty much what's on my mind. It just doesn't really sit right with me looking back at
Yeah,
it. Um,
it's a
I
win
know
at all.
people
It's a win
can,
at all cost mentality.
it's like on one hand, I am impressed. It's like, wow, you're
You,
using your noggin,
you know ball.
but it's like, come on, man. I mean, it, this big game to me, I feel like it cheapens it just a slight, just a tiny bit, not a lot. It Ohio State could have not converted. They could have threw a pick. They could have been
Mm-hmm.
sacked. Um, Anything could have happened there, but they could have missed a field goal. We don't know.
Agree.
Technically, it isn't in the rules. It's just not specifically not a rule, I guess, if that makes
Yep.
sense, because it's still a penalty. But I don't know, man. I don't like it. I think it's grimy, and like the more I think about it, it just
I don't think it's
you know,
grimy. I think it is.
it's Bush League.
It's
Bush League's
Bush
the
League.
best way to
It's
put it.
Bush League. It takes away from the integrity of the game.
Yeah, yeah, and
And
that's what I don't like. That kind of thing. It's like with Kenny Pickett's fake slide. It was like, wow, that was really
yes,
smart, but it was also like, bro, come on. It's 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 Michigan the way that they did the things that they did. It's like, come on, bro. Like just play the fucking game just play the game like it's supposed to be played.
you got to donate money to the swear jar. Do we have any more hot topics though in football that we want to cover?
No, that's really I believe that's it.
All right.
So right now, yeah.
So let's transition into the games of the week. Nick, I have a few down. We talked about these ahead of time. Number one game I want to cover is 24 Michigan at 22 Illinois. I believe that this game is some type of a ceremony for like the 100 years or 150 years or something like
Yeah, they're
that
wearing the fake leather helmets.
Memorial Field in Champaign-Urbana. Nick, Michigan is currently a 3.5 point favorite in this game. The matchup predictor has Michigan a 60% chance of winning the game. Without a quarterback, without a good offense, Nick, can they do enough to stop Illinois? Wait for it. Long pause. Dramatic effect. Well, ask Purdue for that. Let's ask Purdue for pointers. After that abysmal display of football that we saw in the second half against Purdue last week, in their 50-49 victory, which should have not been that close of a game, Nick, I don't think Illinois is that bad of a team. I really do think that Illinois is going to win this game. I have 100% confidence in Illinois' defense. I think that Purdue played really well in the second half. They did score 23 points in the fourth
Illinois was
quarter.
looking ahead, I think.
I do too. I agree 100%. And they ended up getting by one that they should have blew out. But I think that if Illinois plays the caliber of football, offense, defensively, that they played against Nebraska, that they played against Penn State, I think that they beat Michigan solely on the fact that Michigan throws the football worse than my 2-year-old child. Nick, what's your thoughts on this game? Did you like that long, dramatic climax where you thought I was going to go hard about
No,
Michigan winning and just
I was getting ready to, I'm taking notes here. I'm like, I'm getting ready to counter this. This feels like a game. This this just feels like a game that Illinois wins. It
I agree.
feels like a signature W for them. Um, you got a reeling Michigan who is licking their wounds and they're just trying to skate by. You have Illinois who's tough. You have them at a special game. They're wearing the uniforms. It's going to be a really cool environment.
And that stadium's
This
going to be packed.
I thought about going. I'm not
I,
gonna
I
lie.
did too. I did too.
We so
If I didn't have to work.
we I, it just feels like a game that they can win. I think that Illinois has been they've actually been rather explosive
Yeah,
offensively. I think if they can get chunk plays and make force Michigan to throw the ball and play from behind, it's a wrap. They
I
were
agree.
going to smother Michigan's offense. Now, that being said, Michigan does have some damn good talent. It's still a great program. They could go pull it off. If Michigan wins this football game, that's a huge win for Michigan.
It
Huge
is.
win.
It
But
is.
it's the same way the other way around. I don't feel great about picking a winner for this one, but I have to lean Illinois right now because they're
Yes.
more of a complete team.
I think if you can't pass the ball against a team with a defense like Illinois has, or a team that has a higher caliber defense like Illinois has, I don't
Take
think
the
you,
under, that's for sure.
I don't think you win this game. That's very smart. That's very smart. Next game we'll talk about. We will stay on interesting matchups outside of the SEC. Number 17 K State at unranked West Virginia University. This is a make or break team or make or break game for K State. K State is in a position where they are playing a very sneaky team that could possibly have enough in the tank to be able to beat them. K State is only, surprisingly, a 3-point favorite in this game with a 56.8% chance of winning this game. I would imagine if those lines were like that during Colorado, that there would be bias against them, or got bias for Colorado. But this is against West Virginia. You're going to pick the best team in this game if if you're the experts. And the fact that K State is only a 3-point favorite kind of has me a little. It has some question marks. I will say this, and I'm going to give credit when credit's due. Avery Johnson played really well last week. Again, he played 2 good weeks in a row. God hell didn't freeze over. I am not dying. There's nothing wrong with me, but I will give credit where credit's due. I mean, he played well in their win against Colorado. I mean, he was 15 for 23, 224 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. He had 1 interception. I can't pick a winner in this game. I can't really decide who I think's going to win. I know who I want to win, but I can't tell you who I think's going to win. I want West Virginia to win, but I think that K State could get it done. I really do think so. I think this is going to be a close game. I think this is going to be a fun game. But also, Colorado, I think, is worse than West Virginia is, and I think Colorado played really well for the most part against K-State last week. So, Nick, what are your thoughts about this game? How you feeling about this game? And no, I didn't stutter. I really did give Avery Johnson a compliment.
Did they happen to mention that purple Lamborghini? Just check.
Thank God my mic wasn't on. That would have been really bad.
What did you just pull off the mic?
My headphones fell and the mic fell with it, but I'm that upset with you mentioning that. I told you never to mention that on this college football show. I told you if I ever heard that on a broadcast again, I will never watch another day of college football in my life. And you just went ahead and pulled that card on me. So, Nick, as of today, this is the last episode of the Saturday Sermon College Football Show. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been great. Good night.
All right, moving on.
Why'd you do that?
First off, my AirPods died, although I charged them all night.
You're fine. You're fine. Keep rolling.
Can you hear? You
Keep
can't hear
rolling.
yourself.
Keep rolling.
All
Keep
right.
rolling.
Thing I'm gonna say about West Virginia, and I've been pretty high on West Virginia all year. I mean, even in the preseason, they have three losses, right? But their three losses are against undefeated football teams. Well, did Pitt hang on to win? They're yeah,
Yeah, Pitt won. I had Pitt in a parlay, and they won because of Cal missing a field goal.
Cal missed the field goal. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, they lost to Penn State, who is the third ranked team in the nation. They lost to Pitt. I'm not sure where they're ranked, but they're ranked and they're undefeated. And they lost to Iowa State, 11th ranked team. They lost to Iowa State by less than two touchdowns. They really should have beat Pitt. And I mean, Penn State, they lost it by 20, 22 or something like that. But again, third ranked team in the nation. West Virginia is a good football team. I think West Virginia is again right there. You know, their brand of football they play is tough. The game is going to be in Morgantown. I don't feel like I don't feel good picking K-State, but if you had a gun to my head, I'm probably picking K-State because that's the safest bet, you know?
Yeah, well, you're going to have to make that pick in our pool, and it's probably going to be a game day decision for the both of us because I'm going back
Oh,
and forth on that
100%.
game as well.
100%.
I think that, and I know I ride him pretty hard. You know, I think Avery Johnson, if they used him a little bit more, it's hard. It's a hard comparison. I was going to say if they use him a little bit more like they used Lamar, but they are not the same guy at all. If they just use his mobility a little bit more than what they do, I think that they would be in a little bit better position because his mobility opens up his passes. I mean, a perfect example of that is the Arizona game where him running the ball opened up a lot of things downfield for him. But with that in mind, I think the running backs are so good. They really are. And shout out to Dylan Edwards for having a touchdown against this old team. That was pretty clutch. But yeah, no, I keep going back and forth. Do I think West Virginia is going to win? Do I think that they have the tools to win? Yes. I mean, do I think they could win? Yes. Do I think they have the tools to win? Yes. Am I confident they're going to win? No. Same thing with K-State. Do I think they can win? Yes. Do I think they have the tools to win? Yes. Do I think they're going to win? I'm just not. I'm not confident in either team.
This is the Big 12, dude. This
It's
is
a
more of
fun
a
game.
crapshoot than the rest of college football.
It's a big game.
Like it's gonna be a good one to watch.
I agree. I agree. But Nick, let's talk about another good one to watch, and then we will dive into the main event of our weekend. Number 7 Alabama at number 11 Tennessee. Both teams are coming off of two horrible weeks of football. Both teams are 5-1. Both teams are fighting for a playoff spot. Alabama is currently a 3-point favorite, and the lines on the matchup predictor are pretty much a 50-50 with Alabama a slight edge at 52.5%. Nico has played horrible the past few weeks. He has not played well. He's not played confident. If Tennessee expects to get something going, it needs to be in the passing game. But I'm going to say this. I have this weird feeling in my head, okay? And this could be bias, and if it is, stop me. But I have this weird feeling in my head, and this thought keeps ringing in my head. And I'm thinking of October 15th, 2022. 100 points total scored in the game. Both teams had a point to prove. Are we going to see another shootout? Are we going to see another game like that game that they played where all those points were scored, where Tennessee edged them out, where they just said, screw the defense? Are we going to see another game like we saw Georgia versus Alabama where both defenses said, hey, let's go after it on offense? Are we going to see another high-scoring game in this? You can come back now.
Joseph Legendre. You remember last week where you thought that it'd be cute to wear a UNC Trojans football jersey?
Yeah, but you're gonna have to cut the music so we don't get in trouble from YouTube. But yeah,
On beer. Roll Tide. Oh, this part. And LSU and Tennessee too. Read it. Read it and weep, boy. Read it and weep.
so did your brother
What's
Jordan
up, bro?
did your brother Jordan let you borrow that shirt?
What's up, bro?
Did your brother Jordan let you borrow that shirt?
What are you talking about?
See, the difference between you and I is that 17 and 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids don't affect my mood. I do get a little bummed out when my team loses. I don't go on a full-on crash out like you do. So that's why I knew what I did would get under your skin. This doesn't get under my skin, Nick. The only
You
thing
didn't get under my skin. You just looked like.
there's only one sport that gets under my skin, baby, and that's professional wrestling. That's the only thing that'll make a man emotional. It's pro wrestling, the art of pro wrestling. But anyways,
Anyways.
Nick, I do think that this game could be a shootout like it was back in 2022, just because of the fact that Alabama does have a very questionable secondary. Both teams have not played incredibly well on defense the past couple of weeks. Tennessee's played much better on defense than Alabama has the past couple of weeks, but both teams have kind of struggled on both sides of the ball. I think this is the perfect storm that both teams can come out firing and really prove a point. This could be a big game that wakes them both up, which the other two were not big games that I mean, just being honest, I mean, they overlooked. I think this is going to be a high scoring game. I don't think 100 points are going to be scored like it was back in 2022, but I think it's going to be a big game, but I'm kind of torn about who I am picking for the podcast. Who I'm picking personally is going to be Tennessee. I think Tennessee could pull it off. I think Tennessee could get the win. But I'm torn about who I'm picking. They're both teams that if they don't wake up, if one team wakes up and the other one doesn't, it could be a very long night for the opposing fan base. So, Nick, what are your thoughts about the game? I know you don't give nothing but to give a piss about nothing but the Tide or whatever. Roll Tide Willie.
I had to, I had to throw the old shit kickers on because I think this game's gonna get out of hand.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't think
I
that
don't.
at
I
all.
don't. I know you're trolling.
Listen, I man, both of these teams have been on the same trajectory since the beginning of the year.
Agree.
If you think about it, their comparisons, they both laid an egg the same week. I mean, Alabama's was worse, arguably, than Tennessee's was, but then Tennessee goes into OT with the Florida Gators, which
Yep.
look ahead, sure, but like, come on, the Gators are bad.
Yeah.
And then you have Bama squeaking by a game they should have lost
Yep.
to
South
you
Carolina.
to South Carolina, who's
Yep.
who's good, but they're not that good. I mean, we talked about it. This game, with them both laying an egg and being in a league that's just far too competitive, this is a playoff game.
It is.
This game weighs more than what Georgia Bama did. If but that game was the same way. Georgia's on a trajectory right now that's they're in trouble because
Yep.
they laid an egg. Or they didn't even lay an egg. They played a good game, but they needed to win that game. There are
Hmm.
too many there's a competitive balance across the board. And either way, this is going to be a legacy game for Jalen Milroe or Nico.
Yep.
Um, you're going to have more of an idea of this one than I do and a feel for it. I think that Tennessee's defense is better than Alabama's defense.
I agree. I think
I think,
Tennessee has a great defense. They just haven't played the way they played, the first half of the season, or
and
first
I think
half
Bama's
of
is
the first
suspect
half of the
across the board.
season. And I think Bama's is very suspect across the board. I think that they're going to feed Dylan Sampson and Bishop. I think they're going to feed them the rock, but I think they're going to have to lean on Nico, and Nico's going to have to, like you said, have that legacy game. He's going to have to prove, hey, I'm here, and you have to stop me, or he's going to end up playing the same way he's played the past 2 weeks, the rest of his season.
I mean, he's got to bounce
He's
back.
got
I
to.
think he's got a great quarterback or a great coach that can do it for him. But
Here's another weird one, and this is something that it could be me being a biased fan thinking about this as well. Do we think that Heupel is still holding back Nico a little bit in the sense that he's wanting to? Now, granted, they did lose to Arkansas, but do you think that he might be holding him back, knowing that they can win these games without fully relying on Nico's arm, or do you think that he's just calling some questionable things to protect Nico because he knows that Nico's not ready and prepared?
I probably say the latter.
Okay.
I mean, he's a young quarterback.
Yeah.
I, again, as a Penn State fan, same same thing, last year with Drew Aller. Um, but I mean, he's got to cut him loose.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we saw what happened with Drew last year. I mean, he didn't get a chance to really sling it, but when he
Mm-hmm.
did, the kid had an arm. The kid had a cannon, and he could make some good plays. They cannot protect or hold back here. They got to pull out all the
No.
strings. They got to let this kid play the football that he is capable of playing and let him play free and loose. If they can do that, I think that he's going to be able to exploit the Bama secondary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Tennessee can win this game. I think this one's coming down to the last possession, regardless. I don't see any way how it's not. And I think my fear is if for Tennessee is if Alabama gets the football last, I think they're in trouble because Jalen Monroe is going to find a way to make a play
Yep.
with that Ryan Williams. It's it's a last possession kind of football game to me. Um, and I think there's going to be it's gonna be interesting. I still don't know who I want to pick, to tell you the truth.
I
I'm torn.
I don't want to pick this game, but I have to pick this game, and I am going to right our wrong. I'm going to be singing Rocky Top for about 45 minutes before it starts, and at halftime I'll play Rocky Top on repeat.
I'm
And
gonna take the shirt off too.
at the end of the night, I think that I don't think I'm going to be cheering Tennessee to win this game because you always have to. Anytime your team's in a game that you have to pick, you have to cheer them on. So I'm picking Tennessee to win, but that is only because of fandom. I'm unsure of who I really want to pick, unbiasedly. So yeah,
I feel you there. I feel you there.
last one.
I can send this to you in the mail if you want it for the game.
No,
It was
I'm
just
I'm actually good, but hey, real quick, I want to take this time to shout out Byron Barnes, one of my buddies from college. Byron has been pretty active with the Alabama posts in the Saturday Sermon Facebook page, so appreciate you tagging me in that post because you know it's big rivalry week. So B, brother, I'll talk to you on game day. Get ready for it. Let's
yeah.
transition into the heavyweight matchup though, Nick.
Well, real quick before you do that, I do want to do the same thing. We have just created the Facebook. If this is the first time you guys have watched since you just realized we're doing it,
Yeah.
welcome. I know it's a late welcome, but definitely appreciate it. Bill U's been in there talking. We got Shoal. Of course, all the guys that we're always talking to are in there.
Yeah.
Um, Jeff has been messaging and interacting. So it's been fun, and we want to keep doing it. So
Shout out to Jeff. Last shout out, Nick's grandma. Nick had some very foul language on the video we posted last week that we had to pull it down.
sorry, Grandma.
So, grandma, your boy Joe, he didn't curse at all in that whole thing. He kept it very calm, collected. Great guy. Your grandson, we're going to have to get a bar of soap for him. And he's got a birthday coming up on December 1st, and I think that maybe we should just all buy him a bar of soap. Maybe put it in a sock and wait. We should all buy him a bar of
Oh,
soap, and we
easy.
should we should put it in his mouth because of the fact that he's got a potty mouth, and this is how he talks to all of
Listen,
us.
Grandma knows that I get fired up about football. That's it.
This is how he talks to me
I'm a
every day.
passionate,
This is how
I'm
he
a
talks to me every
passionate young
day.
man.
Sorry, Grandma, but shout out to Grandma. Shout out to Michelle. Shout out to Mike. Shout out to Big Joe. Shout out to my mom. Shout out to my wife. Shout out to my sisters. I don't know why we're shouting all these people out, but back to Jeff. Shout out to Jeff because this is going to be the heavyweight matchup of the year right here. Number 5, Georgia at number 1, Texas. Jeff, I was very critical in the beginning. I'm talking to you, buddy. I was very critical in the beginning. We both were, but guess what? You're Texas Longhorns. As I said earlier, I think they're the national champion without the crown. They have all to lose and none to gain going forward, to be honest with you. I don't think they are going – I think they can get better by any means, but I think where they're sitting at right now, they're playing perfect football start to finish. They're going to win the national championship. They are going to win the national championship. So,
Jeff's sitting here like, dude, shut your
yeah,
mouth
sorry, I don't mean to
because
jinx them. I can go back and say Georgia, but I truly don't think that I have to speak my feelings because this is a college football show and we have to give the fans what they want, all 6 of you guys out there. But Texas is currently a 5-point favorite, but the matchup predictor has a 76% chance of them winning the game. Will Georgia play better than they did against Bama, against Mississippi State, against Kentucky, or will we see the same Georgia team that we saw in those games? Nick, I think they are overrated. I think they are overhyped. I think they are losing their swagger. Nick, no, they will not play. I think Texas is going to come out rolling. They are going to play 4 quarters of FU football, and I think that Texas is going to win this game. As I said, the uncrowned national champions. Nick, what's your thought about this game? What do you have thinking? What do you have rolling in the brain?
yeah, I mean, this is one of those games. I have for coach outside of, Woody hazing kids. Um, I have a lot of respect for Kirby Smart as a football coach, and it's guys like this that it's like, how do you outright just count out? But I do it. They've had like this downwards trend, and it's just like Carson Beck has played his best half of football against Bama, and he hasn't really done much since. They've not looked great. Now they're stout up front, and I think if they stand any chance whatsoever, those guys got to come in clutch and win the, line of scrimmage. But there's no way I can sit here and confidently bet on Georgia to win the football game. The only way I see Georgia truthfully winning the football game is college football math because it'll throw a wrench in everything we think, just like it happens every single year. But no, there's no way I can sit here and pick Georgia to win the football game. I don't think there's any way you can either. I don't think any
No,
of our guys in the group can pick it either because
no.
Texas is that complete of a football team up to
I,
this point.
I think the only people who think that Georgia can win are Georgia fans at this point.
I don't think you're wrong.
Texas's body of work this year is speaking for itself. Yeah, they didn't play anybody great, but the way they were beating these teams,
I mean, we've talked about it. It is hard to win a college football game.
it is.
I don't care who you play, it is hard to win a college football game. That's why you have good teams slip up against perceived not good teams. I mean, these are all again 18 to 20-year-old kids. They all probably could compete really closely in high school. I mean, it just depends on who goes where and who develops where. It is hard to win a college football
It
game,
is.
but they have gone in and they have pummeled every single opponent that has come across them.
Mm-hmm. And even when they play bad, they still play good.
Yeah, yeah.
This
What
weekend
what
was a
is the
perfect. This weekend was
what
a
is
perfect
the
example of that. This was the worst game they played, honestly, all season long, and they still looked good.
yeah, I mean, Oklahoma's still not, I mean, Oklahoma
Yeah.
would still beat a lot of football teams in
Yes,
FBS.
agree. Well, Nick, let's jump ship. Games of the week. I'll go first with my games of the week, and you will go second with your games of the week. This is Joe's Saturday Sermon Games of the Week. Starting off number 1, Miami at Louisville. This game is the game to see if Miami is real or if Miami are frauds. Stay tuned and find out more on the next episode of College Football. Next one up for me is Alabama at Tennessee. This is a playoff game, as Nick said. Very excited about this game. It's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be a nail biter, and I don't have nails to bite. I will be fully locked in. JoJo will be in his full Tennessee football outfit for as long as he will keep it on. He had it on for about 30 minutes tonight and then immediately took it off and got mad. Next game of the week. Nebraska at 6-0 Indiana. This game should be on everyone's TV, and if you only have one TV, this should be on your phone because there's probably going to be a really meaningful game on during that time. But this is a pretty meaningful game. Nick and O, 6-0 Indiana. They are good. They are good, and this is going to be a very fun game with both teams, and I'm super excited about this one. And my last game of the week pick, of course, you know I have to go with Georgia at Texas. Nick, what are your games of the week?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, as it happens often, we have the same games of the week. I'm gonna try to throw another one out there. I think LSU Arkansas is gonna be a slugfest,
Agree?
and I'm very much looking forward to that one. I think it's a game that Arkansas is very winnable for Arkansas. They can bring LSU back down to earth, and they could really shoot their trajectory up, with a win like this. I mean,
Agree?
I think it's just going to be a slugfest. I think the way Arkansas wins the game is they have to be dominant up front. I was talking to Shoal on it earlier today. I think they have to just be the aggressors here, and I think they have it in them. But this is gonna be a slugfest. Of course, we got the big games, the Bama and the Tennessee,
Mm-hmm.
the Georgia and Texas. Nothing needs to be said about it, but
Agree?
Nebraska at Indiana. This is a game I don't know who to cheer for. I'm gonna be honest with you
I don't either.
because I love Matt Rule. We talked about it all the
Yep.
time. He is one of the Saturday sermon
He's
deities.
no, he's an apostle of the Church of the Saturday Sermon.
Yeah, yeah.
You like that one?
But Kurt, that was good. That was good.
Thank you.
But Kurt Cigarette Signetti has got so much damn swagger. How do you I win? Google me. What
Yep.
a baller. He didn't say that, mind you, when they were 6-0. He said that before he even stepped foot in brand of Indiana practice.
Yep.
Memorial Stadium in Bloomington is going to be popping. And
Yep.
it is so cool to see. They haven't sold, I think they sold out a game in 2021 and then 2017. But outside of that, when I went, it was sad sight. But that's when Penn State was had one loss or two losses, and I Indiana had maybe two wins. It's a different atmosphere out there, and I'm just here to watch a good football game. You have Indiana scoring 47 points a game. Like they used to give up 47 points a game. Now they're putting up 47 points a game. And you have Nebraska, who is, I mean, this is going to be Indiana's toughest test to this point.
Mm-hmm.
They're
I'm
going to
excited
be
for it.
physical up front. And it's just cool, man, because both of these teams have not been good the past several decades. And now there's one loss between both of them.
Yeah.
And this game is actually meaningful midway through the season, which
Yep.
is awesome. Who do you got?
I am picking Indiana. I think that Indiana is just on a roll right now. I think they're disruptors. I really do. I think they're very much a disruptor in
Okay,
the Big
but
Ten. And I think that coming off of an incredible season at JMU last year, this whole coaching staff has the winning mentality. And I see them winning this game in a gritty game because Nebraska really hasn't looked that good the past couple of weeks. I don't think they've looked that good, honestly, truthfully, since the Illinois game. Unless I'm missing a game in there somewhere. The Purdue game was after that, right? And they didn't score that many points against Purdue.
only 28 points.
Yeah. And that's a team that got demolished by Notre Dame. I think the week before that.
They just had a good win against Rutgers,
Yeah.
in a 14-7 game. But then Rutgers just got mollywopped by Wisconsin.
Yep. So the more I think about this game, the more I talk it out. I don't think Nebraska's looked all of that good since the Illinois game. I
Matt
think
Rule's got
once
to get a signature W,
he does,
and
I don't think this is it.
it's gonna come at some point. I
I,
don't know when.
I
I
don't. I
could
think
see it very well being this week, but man, it's hard because this is like we're putting I'm putting that typical Indiana in my head, and this ain't that, and
no,
that ain't this.
no.
This is a different era in Bloomington. I don't know, man. This is gonna be a coin flip game for me. I think I lean towards Indiana, but because of that, it's like college football math tells me that Nebraska's gonna get it done.
Okay. Well, I'm putting this out there now. Microphone to the face. When Indiana beats Nebraska, we're getting Gio on next week. I'm saying it right now. We're getting Gio on.
I'm in there.
Our friend
I'm
that
in there.
has switched from Notre Dame over to Indiana.
Well,
Our
okay, to be
our
fair,
friend that switched
he
over from Green Bay to the Colts. I got to respect the hustle. I got to respect it.
just a big indie guy.
Just a big indie guy selling out,
Moves
even
there
though Notre
and
Dame is in Indiana, Nick. But
I know.
hey, Gio,
South 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 Bend, you asshole.
Gio, when Indiana beats Nebraska this week, I'm looking at you dead in the eyes, and I know you're going to see this because you comment on all of our stuff. Gio, when Notre Dame or when India, excuse me, when Indiana beats Nebraska this weekend, you're coming on next week. I know you talked about coming on this week. You're coming on next week. You got me? Have fun at your conference, baby. Last thing. In a world where two horrible football teams meet on the gridiron, we present the Dan Hernandez Toilet Bowl Game of the Week. Nick, Dan wanted to shout out. Dan just got a shout out. I didn't know where else to shout him out at. Dan actually has phenomenal toilets at his house. Shout out to Dan's house. Great toilet bowls, very slick porcelain, usually pretty clean. The kid cleans when he gets bored. It's pretty nice to see. Shout out to Dan. That was your shout out. You're welcome. But the toilet bowl game of the week this week, Nick, I have one in mind, and it's Tulsa at Temple. 2-4 at 1-5. The 1-5 team with Temple is currently a 2.5 point favorite. Nick, this is a big banger at 1 p.m. on Saturday, and I have been pretty good with these Toilet Bowl Game of the Weeks. Go back and watch last week's episode to get a good idea of the Old Dominion pick that I had. So, Nick, what's your Toilet Bowl Game of the Week? What are you thinking?
Well, mine actually already happened, so that's maybe not fair.
I'm
But
sorry, I was traveling.
huh?
I'm sorry, I was traveling. We could have recorded earlier.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's true. Mine was played yesterday at UTEP versus FIU. You have Florida International with two wins. They're 2-4 coming into the game, where you had UTEP at 0-6. UTEP got their first W of the season, 30-21. The second I turn that game on, I see this beautiful pick six from a UTEP line or a pick from a UTEP linebacker on the goal line. Took it into the five and they ran it in and scored. It was a good game throughout the game. I mean, it was neck and neck up until fourth quarter. UTEP was losing. They scored 10 points to put it away, get the W. Good football. Good, bad football. Bad football that's was kind of bad football that wasn't good to watch. No, bad football that was good to watch, but it wasn't good football.
And that is the name of the game, the Toilet Bowl Game of the Week. Guys, as we come up on our conclusion, we started something last week, and I'm going to give the floor to the both of us, but primarily Nick first. Nick, is there anything you want to complain about this week?
I kind of got into it a little bit earlier. Lane Kiffin is just a bomb. He
Okay.
can't win the big game. He can't win the big game. He's all talk. He's all bark. He's no bite. He is all about himself. Again, the posting of the Gators. Like, we get it, dude. You're trolling. Or maybe you're not trolling. But you have a team that is supposed to be, you know, that you're supposed to be coaching. and you're doing this nonsense, get the hell out of here, dude. You're a bum. Like, focus on winning football games. I don't care who you are. You were born on third base and you have come up short every single time. I am so sick of Lane Kiffin. And then you have Jackson Dart with his stupid little hood on trying to make his Tim Tebow statement. Brother, it's over. It is over. The ship has sailed. You had a easy schedule compared to the rest of the SEC. You had a cakewalk into the playoff, and now you're sitting with two losses. I don't want to hear another damn word about Ole Miss or Lane Kiffin. They
Okay.
blew it.
Okay. My complaint of the week, which I have many when the cameras are off. My complaint of the week, streaming
Kirby
services.
Smart pushing a kid?
Streaming services. My complaint of the week is streaming services. Complained about it a little bit last week.
It's so stupid.
But as a college football fan, I want one uniform place where I can watch college football. For a die-hard college football fan, I have multiple TVs designated to watch college football. And I'm looking at you, Hulu. I'm looking at you, YouTube TV. I'm looking at you, ESPN Plus. I'm looking at you, CBS. I'm looking at you, NBC. I'm looking at you, Peacock, which is technically NBC. I'm looking at you, CW. Now you have football games on. I'm looking at you, John Smith's televangelist television programming. You probably have football on as well. Guys, let's all come together. The world is
Univision
the
has
world
football.
the world is a rough place. The world is a tough place. We have fighting, we have infighting, we have people mad at people for this, people mad at people for that. One thing that brings people together is sport and recreation. Sport and recreation is very important for the betterment of our society. But you guys are doing something to us by splitting up sport and recreation for our visual pleasure onto 27,000 different streaming services. Guys, let's get it together and let's figure out how to have one platform to watch every single game on
People are too
multiple
selfish,
TVs.
yo.
I can't do this anymore, Nick. I'm tired of it.
It's the
Why
NCAA.
why can I watch a quad box on an Apple TV device on only ESPN Plus? Why can't I only watch ESPN Plus quad box on Apple TV, but I can't watch it on my Roku? Why can't I watch it on my
Because
Fire
the
Stick? Why
NCAA
can't
is
I
greedy
don't
and
even
they
think it's the
don't care about the
NCAA.
fans.
It has something to do with Apple TV or something. I don't even know. How
It
come?
has everything to do with NCAA giving rights to these random streaming services that you got to
Well, Apple
pay
TV is not even a
15 a
streaming
month.
service. It's Apple TV box. I don't get it. It
Same
confuses me.
shit.
It confuses me. But guys, let's come together. Let's find peace. Let's find a common ground because you're all going to end up just like Bally Sports at the end of this all.
Oh, that was brutal.
Yeah, I had to say it. So, RIP to Bally Sports Network. I can never find a
I
Blues
don't
game
miss
anymore.
it.
Let's get onto that. Bally Sports. Subscribe to you guys. Loved you guys. Got to watch my Cards play ball all the time. Man, you're breaking my heart. What's up with the Blues? I find them on random channels on cable all the time, and then I don't find them for several days. You got to figure it out. Guys, streaming services, organizations, let's come together. Let's unite because I'm getting really tired of it. I'm just going to stop watching sports and start watching soap operas. Closing thoughts?
Uh,
I'm
Soap
drained.
operas don't talk about purple Lamborghinis.
This has been another episode of the Saturday Sermon College Football Show. See you next week.